What is going on, everyone? My name is Jared Haas with Frontstretch.com, and this week we have NASCAR Mailbox, where I answer your questions that you ask on our YouTube channel. Let's dig right in after Hendrick Motorsports hit the jackpot, finishing 1, 2, and 3. And now let's dig into the mailbox questions. I felt like I got quite a few of these questions from what was said in the comments, different variations of it, but I'll read a few of them to you. Penske Cup Series says, well, when Penske's good but gets wrecked and Haas is garbage, Chevy's going to dominate. Or this comment by Roy McDre says, Chevy won in Daytona on numbers. Kyle Busch and Trackhouse are good at Fontana. HMS is great at Vegas. I expect Penske or Harv to win at Phoenix. Or at James says, thanks Chad Knaus and Jeff Gordon. They are masterminds with endless money. Very interesting comments that we're getting with the situation, but no doubt that Hendrick Motorsports has been the dominant factor in these mile-and-a-half tracks. I mean, you look at last season at Homestead with Kyle Larson dominating. William Byron has these types of wins before. Alex Bowman won here. I do it to a pitch strategy, but Hendrick Motorsports has been running in front during these mile-and-a-half tracks. And obviously, Toyotas were hurt by only having one really practice section in qualifying. All of them were in the one session except for Tyler Reddick, who had engine issues where he couldn't practice or qualify, so they only had one session to go off of notes. A little bit more difficult. That's why they kind of slowly crept up to the field. Bubba Wallace was the best finishing Toyota, but Ford was a little bit shocking, especially considering that you had Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney were two favorites. Ryan Blaney has performed well at Las Vegas, but last season, both times was involved in cautions. He DNF'd in the spring race, spun out late and off of turn 2. Blaney didn't really have that great performance, even though he started third in the race. And then he had Joey Logano, the pole sitter. He just said he needs to go back to the drawing board. He has no idea why he was so slow. And times change in the sport. There's going to be one manufacturer that's going to be top to the other. You look 5 years ago, Chevy was nowhere to be found. It was mainly Fords and Toyotas that were winning all the races. In 2018, Chevy won 4 times that year, including Austin Dillon with the Daytona 500 and Chase Elliott the other 3 times. It's the ebb and flows of things. Some teams find stuff while other teams are behind the 8 ball with that. And perfect example is what happened with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2020. You had Joe Gibbs Racing alter the paint scheme of the 11 car and the 18 car shown here, trying to trick the OSS inspection system of that being darker. It gives a little bit more tolerance for that fender, and that little bit of difference makes a big difference on the track. So it's a gray matter area that they could be testing and probably are. The team's not going to go out and say this is what we're doing with the next-gen car, but it seems this dominance has carried over from the old generation car to the new generation car. I mean, you look at this as this might be cheating. I say with this point, if it's not black and white and that's breaking the rules, but if it's a gray area that there isn't a rule for, it's innovation. You look at this very perfect example of Ross Chastain, what he did at last fall in Martinsville, rode the wall, completely illegal in the rule book of NASCAR during that time, but they made a rule about that where you can't wall ride. So Ross Chastain wasn't innovating at that point. Hendrick Motorsports possibly have found some innovation during that. And I mean, to be fair, if there isn't a rule about there ain't breaking, they're not really cheating. They're just innovating. So it's pretty interesting how they've been a little bit more hush-hush on the lines when they have wrecked out. I looked at it last year at Nashville when I was there. Alex Bowman wrecked out during the race, and they put a tarp up while they were working on the car in the garage area, in between the garage and the outside world. And Brock Beard reported this at Las Vegas, that there was a Hendrick Motorsports representative trying to shoo people away from taking pictures. It doesn't seem to be the issue with more when they're trying to repair stuff, but it's wrecks that has happened. But this is all more the speculation of the point. There's not something that I'm going to say, hey, they're doing this with the arrow. You know, there's something under the hood, or what, but Hendrick Motorsports has found something at these 1.5 mile tracks that the Fords and Toyotas are chasing. And we'll see if they eventually catch up. But I want to make the point too of Phoenix. There is a rule change coming this weekend after subpar short track racing last year. I would put the more concerns for the Fords for this weekend, considering how bad they performed. They got only 4 stage points, the Fords, out of all the stages during the NASCAR race. They performed poorly, but this is more their bread and butter. These type of tracks are like Phoenix and Loudon. So if they don't perform well, that's when you should be starting raising eyebrows. But I agree, Haas kind of completely missed it. And Kevin Harvick's usually the lead horse, and everyone else is just there in the field. So I would be a little bit concerned if I'm a Ford going into Phoenix, but if Chevys continue to dominate at Phoenix, if they could dominate in Phoenix instead of the Fords, I'd be a lot more concerned. And now the next question is from Santa Cruiser. They ask, when is RCR going to put performance over family ties and replace Austin Dillon with Austin Hill in the number 3 car? Now, this is a twofold question. You got the performance of Austin Dillon and the performance of Austin Hill. I'm going to take a first look at Austin Dillon and to say this much, that Richard Childress Racing has not been the powerhouse since Kevin Harvick basically left Richard Childress Racing. Tyler Reddick has been a bright spot for Richard Childress Racing last season, where he landed that contract with 2311 Racing. Tyler Reddick led 503 laps last season with Richard Childress Racing. That seems to be almost unheard of. The last time triple-digit laps were led by an RCR car was Austin Dillon in 2020. And the last time that somebody led more laps driving a Richard Childress Racing car than Tyler Reddick did last season was Jeff Burton in 2010. So it's been a while, and it's a lot of pieces trying to build back together after Kevin Harvick and Jeff Burton left. So Richard Childress Racing kind of has been mediocre, so it's been tough for Austin Dillon, and he's had the pressure, and he's been there for a while, yes, but Richard Childress Racing was not the old race team that it should have been. They're starting to go around the bend with Kyle Busch. I think that program is going to be helping a lot with Busch being with the team, but Dillon is making strides throughout his career. In 2021, he had his best average finishing position, and in 2022, he had scored 11 top 10s. Second best season for top 10s for Austin Dillon. So there is some turnaround on that, but the more bigger factor is for Austin Hill. It's too early for Austin Hill to jump in the Cup Series full-time to replace Austin Dillon. You've got to realize of the more recent drivers that jumped up from the Xfinity Series to the Cup Series, you've had drivers like Cole Custer, Eric Jones, Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, and even more recently, Noah Gragson and Ty Gibbs that tore up the series, winning multiple races in a season, and they're struggling to get a foot of being dominant. Some of them just have a handful of wins, and even Cole Custer, at his point, he went back down to the Xfinity Series because Tony Stewart wanted Priest over Cole Custer. So I don't think that Austin Hill is there yet. I could see a breakout season where Austin Hill could get 7 to 8 wins, but that seems to be the more bare minimum to get a Cup Series ride these days. Because for the reality of it, I mean, you have Austin Dillon. Kyle Busch is not going to go anywhere for 8 years. Austin Dillon could be a possibility in the next few years. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I think Austin Dillon's quite all right with that. But Dillon's slowly improving with Richard Childress Racing. And Austin Hill is too far away to consider a Cup Series ride. I'd say minimum would be 2025 for Austin Hill to consider Cup Series full-time, bare minimum. So this is more of a question that'd be kicked down the can. I would see the concern with Austin Hill, especially winning at Las Vegas. He's won 4 races already, but most of them have been at, super speedway type of tracks. He's swept the Daytona opener this year and then last year as well. 2 for 2 on that front. But I don't think he's there just yet to take over that number 3 ride. And I don't think Austin Dillon has been seeing a downward projection of his career. And that is it from NASCAR Mailbox. I am Jared Haas with Frontstretch.com. Make sure to check out next week's NASCAR Mailbox after the races at Phoenix Raceway. As from then, as always, have a great race weekend.
What up? It's Brad Perez. Click subscribe and watch one of the 2 videos right beside me. Visit frontstretch.com for more racing content.